macro game for him.
Yeah, I guess the real question is, does Scarlett just go for another one of those all-ins? Because like we talked about, it's not even necessarily about MaSa not even seeing it coming at this point. It is, can MaSa execute the defense necessary for that? In this situation, I can't even think of a reason why she shouldn't go for it.
Yeah, I think she's just it.
All right, but here we go. Game number 2, ladies and gentlemen, spawning down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map. We have the pink Zerg player sitting up 1-0. Give it up for...
Team expert, Scarlett.
And her opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map. The blue Terran player, can he get up the necessary defenses? Put your hands together for...
OSC Pro MaSa.
Thank you. Let's go, Zombie Grub.
Let's go, Zombie Grub. Do all the analysis.
Let's go on an adventure.
Okay, well, so far we do have a pool first from Scarlett. This is really leading up into, or at least pool before hatchery, this is really leading up to what could be yet another Roach Ravager.
Yeah, I was like waiting to see if the drone left, and then I was waiting to see if she got the earlier pool for the double Gauss into Roach Ravager. And actually, it just as a, not an aggressive opener per se, but it's going to be something that can maybe get the command center stall out or even kill, depending on how many lings she's going to make from this. But it is not going to be super cheesy, is the most important. Well, not, I guess you could also make the Roach Warren after. There's so many times you can make a Roach Warren.
Yeah, there's different levels of commitment. You can go for the proxy hatchery and try and do this stuff. You can go for the Roach Warren a little bit later on and then just rally the units across the map. I think we actually saw that happen in this previous series. And this might actually have been one of the maps that they played as well for game 2 or 3.
That's really nice that she saw the SIV was scouting. I don't know if that always happens, but that was nice. So, you know, right now, if she was going to go for Roach Warren, probably don't do that. If she was going to go for more than 2 lings, probably don't do that. And even with these 2 lings, maybe just literally wait until they have speed and kill an SCV, because you're probably not going to be able to stall at the command center now. Yeah,
it does push back the SCV pretty quickly with just those initial 2 lings, but a couple more lings can rally out behind that, so she still might be able to send them across the map. And actually, if this SCV pulls the Reaper all the way over to this corner, then the rest of the lings can go around the other side of the map and maybe actually still catch MaSa off guard.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised that he did end up sending his Reaper forward. I thought he was keep that at home, seeing that it was a pool first.
I think he was trying to save the SCV with a Reaper, which he successfully does, but now comes at a cost.
This might still work out in his favor, though. That's still, because the command center is still going to be delayed, but seeing the follow-up was probably more important still, and he does see the Roach Warren.
Oh boy. Well, MaSa is, I don't know if he's going to be sighing with relief, saying, hey, I finally got to prove you wrong, or if he's just going to be really frustrated that his SCV just got killed building that command center. This makes the defense actually substantially more difficult.
Man, I thought speed had finished, and I was like, hey, that was a really fast speed. Like, we're going crazy here. Now she had canceled it, so just slow lings getting a kill on a command center isn't supposed to happen, but he knows the roaches will be on their way soon, so he's got to take care of this as fast as possible or not take care of it at all.
Yeah, he is going to pull off the SCVs, but this cuts into his production. He's going to be losing out on a lot of mining time here at a very critical moment. He's going to defend the low ground again, which I'm not a huge fan of, honestly.
I swear I've seen MaSa defend this with not the low ground defense. Like, I can't believe that you guys never tried high ground defense against this, because this was a super, super popular build, a popular era in this matchup when they would do earlier pulls into roaches, or even just like a one-base roach. Like, it was so popular at one point. Every Terran had to find their way to deal with it, and maybe just against a better player like Scarlett, he thinks it's going to work, but you know, it doesn't, not against such a caliber of player.
Okay, well, Bunker can get a whittle away at as the Ravagers force some SCVs to get pull off for mining, and the Overlord's going to provide that high ground vision for any siege tanks that do end up popping out. Cyclone going to be useful to try and pick away at these units. Remember, the Cyclone is actually a very important unit in this situation because it can do damage, take some damage, and then be healed up by those SCVs, unlike those Marines right now.
Yeah. This is not the proxy version, of course, but she is still bringing queens.
Oh, boy.
That is surprising, but I was going to say, until she brought the queens,
oh, that's a big supply block.
To defend the low ground fine.
Oh, supply depot is only just now starting. MaSa's production is going to be completely halted for a bit now.
I guess he didn't really think of her taking down the supply depots up there, but that is one annoyance, certainly, of the Overlord being alive. Maybe get a Viking for that. Nobody's going for Banshees.
Oh man, the Ravager count is very high now. It's almost high enough to take out that bunker. It is high enough to take out the bunker. And while the Banshee is able to take out one of the queens, the other queen focus firing down that Banshee. It may end up going down very shortly. It's so close.
Oh, no.
She does get it. And now the low ground has been broken. Scarlett, is she just going to claim a 2-0 victory, a 2-0 lead in this series like this?
Yes.
Wow.
GG. Now, all right, so obviously MaSa's problem is still thinking that he can defend it in a certain way, or that he has the tools to defend it when he doesn't. So his calculations are off here. But I want to give some credit to his defense in that specific game. The follow-up of the non-proxy roaches, technically, if you do everything correctly, can be defended on the low ground. That's the one that is a little less questionable to do that on. It was the fact that she brought the queens.
Yeah.
That probably was, he was like, oh, what?
Because otherwise the Banshee's there and just
exactly.
consistently whittles away at the Roaches and the Ravagers. And even if he loses the low ground, he can keep his units alive in the main base.
Yeah, exactly. The bunker gets broken, but the Banshee's doing so much damage from the air, there's nothing left over. And he's like, okay, I'm fine with that. But that's not what happened. The Banshee died. So it's just, I really thought he would have that perfect way of dealing with it, but even he is having trouble, thinking. And he's probably worried more so about letting her get into a macro game after this, right? Because it's the over defense is sometimes as bad as not defending at all. So maybe that's really playing into his feelings here.
This just has to be such a frustrating wall to be up against now, because I can only imagine once again what is the reason why Scarlett doesn't just go for it again in game number 3, because if it even almost works, even if it even comes close to working, and then goes into a macro game, and then MaSa somehow manages to win after that, it's still going to be frustrating, because finally then Scarlett's like, okay, cool, now I can just play a normal ZVT. I don't have to go for these all-ins, or I can just do it one more time, and maybe he's going to just get overconfident saying, well, I finally defended one, she'll stop now.
Well, I'm just looking at this map list, and it's like deja vu for real, because I'm pretty sure Ascension was the first map in the last series, and Acolyte was definitely the third one in that last series. So he went for the 4-axe, full committal, right? And then it did not end up working. Even with an attempted follow-up all-in, Scarlett had the details and the knowledge to defend everything that he threw at her.
Well, at least the series is going by a little bit slower than the last one. MaSa's putting up more of a defense, and I think I agree with you. There's things that we have to commend MaSa on. He's been able to defend better than he was before, but he's got to make that jump from almost defending or getting better at defending to I have defended this definitively, and I can at least move into the mid-game, if not move into the mid-game with an advantage.
Yeah. I would really love to just see a macro game, though. We talked about that on Acolytes last time, and then MaSa was the one that tripped things up. She was going to go into, well, I mean, maybe she would have gone to a Nidus, we'll never know, right? But it looked like she was going to go into a third base and a macro game because she wasn't proxying and she hadn't built a Roach Warren immediately. So if that's the case again, then maybe MaSa's like, that didn't work. Actually, macro game, and we get to see powerful MaSa versus Scarlett.
This is actually, that's a really good point. With Acolyte, it's so much more difficult, I think, to try and do this kind of Roach Ravager play versus MaSa, because with the in-base natural, it's effectively even with your trying defend, there's no defending the low ground. If you're defending the low ground, you're like, okay, I'm going to take a third 5 minutes earlier than I'm supposed to, or something weird like that, which is just not going to happen. I mean, MaSa is likely going to take that in-base natural, and no matter what, Scarlett, if she tries to go for this big attack, MaSa's just going to defend his high ground, which is a lot similar to what we were saying before that we wanted to see out of him. It's a safer play on other maps, but on this map, it's normal.
I'm far more worried of Scarlett going for something into the mid-game more so, like the Nidus Storm, for instance, or something a little bit tricky, like, watching Jim Rising yesterday take a map off of MaSa, who apparently wants to go mech at least some games. Going for a fast spire would, definitely be within her ability to do so, even though I think she's kind of just forgotten about her once tried and true meter control.
Well, it is go time, ladies and gentlemen. We're hopping into game number 3 of our losers finals, spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map. Give it up for the pink Zerg player. Her name is
Team Expert Scarlett.
And her opponent spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. Man, this guy needs your energy. Make some noise for the red Terran player,
OSC Pro MaSa.
Yeah, he certainly needs something here.
Oh, thank God. You know, Zombie Girl, I'm not going to lie. There was one fear I had, and that was that he was going to go for the exact same proxy in this game and lose in the exact same way. We might have actually seen him retire if that had happened.
The exact same series. Yeah, and she does take that natural hatchery at the front, too, which is another, that was one addition we didn't really talk about too specifically last time they played on this map, was that the big portion of how she controlled that game so well was taking that base, but it's actually the expected base of Zergs.
Yeah.
Even in ZVZ, I think I still see a lot of Zergs take that
just
base.
get that creep spread out, especially a player like Scarlett. It's so important for her to get that creep spread out. But I really want to touch upon the fact that because this may be a more normal game and looks like it's going to be a more normal looking game, this is MaSa's biggest opportunity. I think it's actually such an incredible boon that Acolyte is the third map, because this is the time that you can do a momentum break. This is when you can halt your opponent's momentum that's just been barreling forward like this boulder he can't really seem to stop, the Roach Ravager all in, and suddenly he gets a win over here in a macro game, and he gets that confidence in himself. And maybe after that, even if Scarlett goes for it in game number 4, he feels like he's going to be playing a little bit better. He's been better warmed up, whatever have you.
Change of momentum is certainly a huge deal. Okay, without momentum and confidence, I guess, getting to a player, we never have reverse all kill innovation 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that, right? But it is difficult to do. Currently, he's at a 0-5 score in this tournament against her with the same builds, which just does not feel very good. And even as he gets into what is hopefully a real macro game here, where he realizes he has his checklist where he's like, no lings, no roaches, third base, I guess it's a macro game, he still might be thinking like, yeah, but then she might do something, because she's done something every other time.
Honestly, like, I actually think that in terms of momentum break, I don't even want to see MaSa go for, you know, just, okay, here's a Hellbite attack, and oh, I got lucky, she just was droning and didn't make units. I actually think that that would not really change a lot. It would just be like one of those, oh no, I actually just kind of over-droned a little bit. Well, let's hop into game 4. You kind of shrug it off, but if it's a close game, it's a macro game, or if it's even just one-sided macro, I think that is what MaSa needs.
Yeah, I think of all people too, I feel like Scarlett's been the one that's been like up 2-0 and then loses because she did like a stupid proxy hat, like actually like didn't even do one that was more of a troll build, right? And she just like, she kind of shrugs it off and laughs.
Yeah,
you know?
it doesn't really do anything to the feeling of the game, the way that the game is going, the pacing of it.
Yeah. Well, MaSa is going for a quick third CC, which if he's allowed to do so, does incorporate into a lot of his games. So he's very well versed in this. And the question really is it bio or mech? Definitely, I think some different tempos that happen depending on the style. The Overlord does die.
Yeah, nice snag.
Off.
This is going to be annoying for Scarlett since it does supply block her until those next set of Overlords do pop out. But she already started up on some of those extras, so she won't be supply blocked for long. But yeah, that third CC definitely going to be really, really nice for MaSa and kind of leading into, again, Acolyte.
So it is going to be bio. We have Sim on the way. And for bio off of a quick 3cc, this is one of those, we were talking about that earlier, sometimes there's that race that you just don't, you're like, you shouldn't let them get away with something. And in TVZ, that's usually, I think, attributed to the Zerg player, which is like, don't let them get the ultras too easily, you're going to have a bad time. But actually, with a 3cc against what I assume Scarlett's going to figure out as a 3cc, so she's also going to like drone and get very macro-oriented, Terran actually has a hell of a good push with 3cc. And MaSa has, I think, especially shown some pretty good pushes. Euthermal is probably the strongest push I've seen in a while, disregarding like maybe like innovation and all them. But I know MaSa also has a really good chance here. And that also is going to power up his micro and multitasking, right?
Yeah. I think also MaSa's just really solid oftentimes with those direct engagements when it comes to the controlling the big bioforce and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing when those, it looks like the engineering base may be finishing up right now. So those upgrades, a very important part of that push you were talking about.
Yeah, they are. She's still going to get faster upgrades. I think he could have been even greedier with this. There are like literally 3cc and a double engineering bay builds, which are just, they're like Marine King Prime. Right, like greed. No 4th CC, but close to it. So she's going to still have that going for her, but it is still a question of does she even realize what's happening right now? So it's around, like a 2-1-1 obviously wasn't the case. She saw the Hellions. And then in another 40 seconds, I think she's going to realize, like, okay, where's the first push? And then when it hits shortly after that, she's going to be like, oh, it was 3cc. Like that, like you're checking things off again right now and seeing even that many Marines already. I think she knows.
Yeah, especially since when you go for the 3cc, oftentimes you're going to be following up with just more bears barracks, and that, of course, explains a lot of those Marines. Yeah. But we see, immediately Scarlett just makes a huge round of drones, and of course has been going for those 1-1 upgrades, has the Bailey Nest for extra just safety defenses, and is continuing to get up more drones. So hopefully she does have enough queens and lings to help defend against this.
So one of the games that I really remember of them playing was on Acolyte, and he really pressured this base, which some Zergs don't even bother getting, but you can definitely get, creeps right over here and spore crawlers, and that will be helpful. She puts her queens there. Like, this is what MaSa was really hitting her hard with, and she's going to be prepared for at least the first 2 drops. Yeah,
this is actually a really smart decision, because if you look at her creep spread, all of the other bases, she'll have at least 3 to 5 seconds of advance notice at worst. But that's the one base that she doesn't really have a whole lot of ways to see the big drop or push coming outside of just potentially sacrificing an Overlord. So just positioning the queens there, she is defending one of the angles. The lings can move into position to deal with most of the other angles until MaSa starts to clean up this creep spread, which is exactly what he's trying to do.
Yeah. Unfortunately, she's already had so much time to creep spread. Like 2 Hellions, 6 Hellions don't do anything against creep spread, really. Like 2 Hellions especially not. So he needs to not just do this once, twice, but like actually keep the Medivacs alive and try and snipe specifically her creep spreading queens.
Ooh, doing a really nice job cleaning up so much of this creep while also getting a drop over to the left-hand side. So the lings are going to try and move over there with the queens and the banelings, but the banelings and the queens turn around to try and deal with the other double Medivac drop. This is that multi-pronged aggression we were talking about.
And I really like that MaSa unloads his Medivac in an uncommon location. A lot of Zerg players will try and figure where Terrans place them. Well, okay, he just ran into a bunch of lings, so never mind. But
oh man, this actually really hurts the ability for him to be aggressive. He's still going to try and charge in, tries to snipe off one of the queens, but these Banelings do not have Baneling speed, but on creep, it is a dangerous game to try and play and snipe too many of them off.
Yeah. But that drop was supposed to stay alive for a long time. Being on the high ground like that, it was supposed to be safe and controlled, but obviously he selected it, he moved in, and then he focused on this one, which almost hit the trick. Killing the creep tier queens is an obnoxious way to stop creep spread. It's not just the creep spread because they just come back over and spread it. It's the fact they have to remake the queens to spread it.
Oh my God.
That is when it really starts getting denied.
Scarlett is going to an absurd number of drones. If I'm reading that production tab correctly, this may actually be going up to 86 or more drones. And yeah, maybe she'll end up losing a few, but this is like Sheth levels, liquid Sheth levels of droning, if you guys remember him.
Wasn't Rhett most well known for
Rhett was known for droning, but Sheth was known for going up to like 110 drones, and Scarlett's not actually that much further off from 100.
All right, I get you. That's just too severe. She's not Rhett yet. Gotcha. All right. Well, that is an absurd number of drones. But MaSa's not so bad in his economy either at 69 SCVs. He could also add on a 4th command center when he sees. I think there's a decision sometimes made with Terran players like, do I want to take it to the long game or do I want to try and just push and win? And right now, all of his resources are going into his production, in double tank production specifically. So that when that pushes, and I think it should still happen before Ultras, even though the Hive's on the way, that's still going to be difficult for her to hold, whether or not she has 84 workers. In fact, it might be more difficult to hold because she'd be down 20 army supply.
Yeah, in the meanwhile, it's going to be very important for MaSa to try and get free damage done with these drops that he's been doing. But the key emphasis there is that he's not losing units. It's free damage. He's picking up those Medivacs before they really lose too many Marines and making sure he keeps the Medivacs alive as well, because having as many units as possible for that big 2-2 push is going to be so important. But he's actually moving out a little bit earlier on than I expected he would.
Yeah, the problem with this, so first of all, he went for like a maxed out 4th CC, which makes a lot of sense. You're going to start banking anyways, and nothing's really been traded. So he is going to have a macro game beyond this push. But then second of all, it's about the upgrades. Because he didn't go for the greediest upgrades possible, this actually isn't hitting anywhere close to 2-2, which is usually the powerful movement with this. But tanks are going to try and make up for that, I think. In good tank positioning, you can actually put some on the top of that ridge, get a couple shots, which is exactly what he's going to do. And Scarlett has to just either find a different engagement path or wait for Ultras to feel very confident about pushing into this.
Yeah, Adrenal Glands is not finished up either, and neither is +2 melee, but here we go. MaSa trying to push a little bit further forward, scanning that creep, trying to get the cleanup. He's being pretty patient about this, and luckily for him, he does actually still have a good bit of time to work with.
Yeah. So like C-topping tanks forward 2 at a time. One thing she could certainly do to help with this is run around. There's not going to be many reinforcements, So don't try and catch reinforcements necessarily,
Ooh.
but actually go into the third base when he's not looking.
And as if she hears you, she is doing exactly that, going to be maneuvering into the right position. A lot of Marines are over there, but the siege tanks are going to have a hard time getting into a good position and figure out what to focus fire down. The Banelings all go down for the most part, though. Beautiful target fire over here from MaSa. The siege tanks doing some serious damage on the north side, but is it going to be enough? Scarlett just seems to have too much.
Yeah, that was too good of a surround. So even though the Banelings are very ineffective, it was on so many Hydras anyways, and just enough Lings to soak up just enough tank shots. And no matter what, getting more than one direction against tanks makes them like, I don't want to say 50% power, I want to say like 20% power. They go from amazing to kind of garbage.
And this, so army supply is going to be very misleading right now. Yes, there's a massive supply lead for Scarlett, but it's actually even bigger than it looks like because so much of that is in medevacs right now that barely even have Marines to heal.
Yeah, but a planetary, tanks, and maybe 10 Marines underneath those medevacs. You can't really see.
Yeah.
Like, she's not going to push into that quite yet, but she is getting into a very good position.
Well,
she could actually throw an engagement in here and then still have enough of a bank to maybe go into Ultras, although her gas is now the question since she just made 22 Banelings.
Oh, she's making a lot of those Banelings right in front of those Marines, so a good chunk of them are going to get canceled. Almost all of them get canceled. A handful of them do finish, but 2-2's finished up. It seems like Scarlett wants to move in, but oh, those siege tanks say no.
Yeah, I mean, it's those things. It's Liberators, it's tanks firing all in one direction. You don't quite know how deep the tank line goes either because you can't get a very good scout on it. And it's still a sizable army for Terran. It's only down 20 army supply, not 50 or 60.
Well, command center at the south side is going to get found out, and a Liberator trying to make its way around the map, actually crossing paths with a few Hydras that weren't quite looking up. And, well, Scarlett might actually be able to get into position to try and put an offensive at that bottom right-hand side. And this is where I think this is not exactly as hard of a position to break for Scarlett.
Yeah, well, that first of all, even if his entire army is over here, this is going to be a little bit easier for him to take an engagement. But also, without sensor towers, MaSa has to be very careful about how he does position his units. If he sends half his tanks one way, half his tanks another, and she attacks with her whole army with one of those, that's actually much less of a chance of actually getting a good defense. But this Liberator managed to sneak around entirely and gets quite a few drones.
Yeah, Sporecrawler unburrows, and the Queens are going to be there to react. Some nice transfuses also being thrown out. Only kills 4 workers, but still not bad. This is pulling Scarlett's attention back home and allowing MaSa to do more aggression. So this kind of builds the momentum, gets that ball rolling for trying to put Scarlett on the defensive.
He had kind of lost it after that one engagement, so it's good that he's getting a triple drop now into that natural base. There are a lot of Sporecrawlers, but Medevacs will just boost right past that. The Vipers are coming back first. I don't know what they're going to do.
Run away!
Maybe they'll help out duck the Medevac stations that die, but here come the Ultras.
Well, Ultras are going to be able to clean this up and force MaSa back, but man, look at that. Scarlett's falling down to 56 workers. Oh my god, Siege Tanks on Siege right now. Big blinding clouds down on top of all the Siege Tanks, and the Medevacs even getting pulled into the Hydras, being taken out one by one. MaSa suffers some devastating losses.
Fantastic engagement by Scarlett, but a big mess up by MaSa. He went way too deep on creep. I think he thought he knew where the army was, dropping like that. But as catastrophic as that did look, losing all the tanks like that, and that was really bad, MaSa keeps an okay army supply, one that will again be able to defend if it's all together.
And man, I am just amazed that MaSa, you have to remember, Scarlett was up at like almost 90 workers, and she's brought down to around 40-some for a while, and she's now starting to re-drone up a little bit more. But man, Scarlett has taken a ton of worker damage during this game. MaSa has done a great job of trying to pull this back and forcing her to make more drones than she probably really wants to. Even if she has that mineral bank and that gas bank now building up, it does allow MaSa to try and make these trades a little bit more efficiently.
Yeah. Brood Lords will be quite tricky to deal with. Now, MaSa, I'm really surprised that he was able to get 4th. Oh, that's a hard no. Yeah, okay.
Gets under there with all the medevacs, though, which is really, really nice. And, of course, sets up this kind of drop over here on the left-hand side, actual opposite side of the map. Scarlett's going to be out of position to defend this.
Very nicely done. But I was going to say, I was surprised that MaSa was able to get a 5th like that. Like, his 5th came down on location very shortly after his 4th, and she didn't let that happen. Nice snipe on that hatchery, but it did happen, all right? And he's even building a 6th right now. He's actually getting into late-game TVZ in a really good position. He's going to be able to get multiple starports, which is what he needs now that both Ultras and Broodlords are out and ready to go.
Okay, a couple of bio units going to get surrounded and picked off over here, but Scarlett is making her charge down the center of the map, but into that one location we were talking about before. It's such a difficult location to break. Is Scarlett really going to try and charge through at that third or fourth?
Yeah, I don't know about that. There's even a bit of SimCity now working against her Ultra to the starport there. So that might be a throw move, to be honest, if things really go badly. And it looks like MaSa is prepared to take on the fight as well. There are Vipers. Blinding Clouds could be key. I don't know why pushing into this seems like a bad idea.
Yeah,
but there aren't any fungals.
Yeah, he has a great defensive position, but he doesn't want to overcommit over here, as we now see some of the Broodlords actually acting in some additional damage, even doing some good friendly fire to that Bioforce with the siege tanks.
This seems like really dangerous to just kind of show that you're losing bio. You know, like you go aggressively forward, you see a potential snipe, and they see your army, and they're like, oh, wait a second, I can deal with that.
Oh, this siege tank friendly fire is brutal right now. You have to be so careful once those Broodlords are out in trying to use your siege tanks effectively. I
am a little worried that he took too long to get away from siege tanks, or that she was just really good and got to countering the siege tanks quickly, either one, as they are going to be not just like useless, but also counterproductive, literally killing his own units.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's mostly losing bio right now rather than losing siege tanks to liberators, but he's replacing that supply with more liberators. So as he loses the bio, it's going to be almost just siege tank liberator. This is turning into a mech.
Yeah. Which I guess I don't really mind as long as his air army is able to support it. Vikings come forward trying to snipe those Vipers. I think they get one.
Parasitic bombs doing a ton of damage. So many of these Vikings end up falling over there. He no longer has much of an answer to the Broodlords.
Actually, that ended up really backfiring right there. But a nice double drop into the top left once again. Unfortunately, even though this base, it could die 100 times, she still has the right side of the map to expand on because she's in pretty much control over there.
Oh, the siege tank trying to take out some of these banelings and actually gets a good chunk of them with the planetary fortress before too much damage is done, but the orbital command, the extra base, does end up falling. The bio is going to go down very quickly to the cleave from the Ultras, and Scarlett is also pushing in on another front, but this front may actually not go quite as well. Well, it's a little hard to say. All these liberators siege up and not doing anything.
That was a little awkward. I think maybe she was like thinking about getting the liberators and realized like, oh no, the Vikings are the true problem. So the Vipers actually just did a lot of nothing for a while there.
Yeah, now the Corruptors have been taken out. That's a lot of Liberators. They actually have an opportunity, maybe even jump on those Broodlords, but no, the Liberators need to help deal with these Ultras and the Hydras.
The armories had to be like reversed from MaSa there. The Liberators are over here, and he saves at least 2 of those command centers. He lost 3 on that right side. That's pretty bad. But this left side, the Liberators didn't even really help out very much. It was the Broodlords and the Vipers.
Oh, man. And you can just see the kind of difference in the mineral income for both these players, as MaSa, having lost that kind of bottom center orbital command in the planetary fortress, now is really hurting. And he's got this massive gas bank, and he's sitting at 136 supply trying to re-max out, but he just doesn't have the minerals.
Yeah, I mean, especially after losing that 5th base, he had been investing into the future by building extra command centers. He was using his bank that he otherwise would have gotten.
The Viking count also not as devastatingly deadly as it was potentially before, since he lost all those Vikings to the parasitic bombs. The Corruptors are more than enough to handle those and keep these Broodlords alive. Now this base is being sieged up. Remember, MaSa was down to 0-3. If he loses this game, he is out of Kings of the North.
And that
GG.
Once again, Scarlett taking the 3-0, but at least the games were closer. The Roach Ravager busts took a lot longer to actually take down MaSa with, and then that third game was the macro game we were all hoping for, even though it still ended with Scarlett taking the victory.